Tonight on the Northwestern News Report, the Windy City is under new management. Lori Lightfoot's plans and how this historic election is shaping Chicago.
And rally against restrictions. As women in other states lose access to abortion, Chicagoans are fighting back. The push to rewrite abortion rules in Illinois to make the procedure even more accessible.
My father was not a criminal.
Plus, families separated but far from the border. What local churches and state politicians are doing to keep immigrant families together.
Those stories and more tonight on The Chicago Show.
It's your Chicago news right now. Good evening, I'm Joey Safchik.
And I'm Justin Sweetwood. Thanks for joining us for this year's Chicago Show. We start tonight with the city's new leader. Last Monday, Lori Lightfoot made history. She's the city's first openly gay and black female mayor, taking over for Rahm Emanuel. Lightfoot took the oath of office at Wintrust Arena Monday morning, saying in her speech that she was humble, hopeful, and honored to represent the city. But while the victory remains bittersweet, the work is just now beginning. Lightfoot will have lofty expectations to live up to after defeating more than a dozen candidates in the Chicago mayoral election. She hopes to prove that she's the best one to represent all of Chicago, all while operating on a more than $700 million budget shortfall. One of her first acts of mayor is right here at City Hall, where she's hosting an open house with her wife, Amy Eshelman. Chicagoans waited in line for as many as 4 hours to get a photo op with Lightfoot, all to express their thanks and gratitude.
She cares. You can feel it in her speech she gave. Everything was from the heart. And that's the type of mayor we need, the right person at the right time for this city.
Issues that Lightfoot plans to address include topics like education and safety, but above all, integrity, in an effort to clean up the city government. In just her first day in office, she signed an executive order limiting aldermanic prerogative, to the delight of many Chicagoans.
I don't think that her focus is political, and I think that that's definitely a plus in this day and age of Chicago politics.
For many people, Lightfoot is a breath of fresh air in the Windy City, and her open house represented the beginning of a new, transparent era.
For me, this is my chance to say that, yes, I'm a part of history, and I love it.
And to top it all off, all those who came out to City Hall got to take home a complimentary slice of Eli's cheesecake.
So I took a picture, talked to her, got the cheesecake.
Lightfoot said the executive order she signed just hours after taking office is the first of many reforms to come.
A case of measles has been confirmed in Chicago. This as the country is coping with the largest outbreak of the virus in 2 decades. The CDPH said the infected person in Chicago took the L from O'Hare Airport to the University of Illinois Chicago campus on May 16th. People may have also been exposed in the Loop, Millennium Park, and at some stores on Canal Street and State Street between Monroe and Randolph. If you're current with your vaccines, there's no need to worry. But 9 out of 10 people who are not protected will get measles if exposed. CDPH offers the vaccines to uninsured children and adults at no cost.
We turn now to our continuing coverage of the abortion restrictions recently passed in several states. Advocates in Chicago want to make changes to abortion laws in Illinois, too, but changes of a different kind.
Thank you all for gathering today to demand reproductive justice and stand in solidarity with those of us in the crosshairs of state violence as a result of having a uterus.
Those forceful words came at one of the Chicago rallies last week in response to restrictive abortion laws passed across the country.
The battlefields are our individual bodies, but collectively we will win.
The protesters also called for reproductive protections in Illinois. They want to repeal a law that requires parental notification for abortions.
The whole concept of being given permission to do something with your body is not something we should be teaching our youth.
And pass a Reproductive Health Act in Illinois.
I think especially for Chicago, we really have to take a bold stance on not just abortion access, but reproductive justice.
Proponents of abortion bans argue that fetuses are living people and deserve rights, but protesters at the rally say restrictions disproportionately affect women in marginalized communities.
I have grown to truly understand that the fight for reproductive rights is connected to every fight for liberation.
And as one 16-year-old activist argued,
abortion is healthcare. Power to the people.
So Illinois does have a parental notification requirement, meaning that anyone under the age of 18 who wants to get an abortion either needs to notify their parents or get an exemption from a judge. That's the requirement that some of the people in the video were protesting. However, we don't have a mandatory waiting period or mandatory ultrasounds or counseling for those considering an abortion. In 2018, Cook County residents had over half of the about 39,000 total abortions in Illinois. That's with about 40% of Illinois residents living in this area.
Thanks, Olivia. Abortion has been a hot issue on the 2020 campaign trail, and not just between parties. NNN's Alexa McHale takes a look at two Democratic congressional candidates divided over the issue.
Thank you all for doing that. You're doing.
Democrat Marie Newman is running for Congress again.
Marie for Congress!
I think that people are really tired of the toxicity of Dan's campaign, how he legislates, his lack of effectiveness in the district.
She's challenging incumbent Democrat Dan Lipinski over a divisive issue.
He does not support Roe v. Wade. He's actively working against Roe v. Wade. So at the end of the day, I trust women and support women, and that's very clear, the difference between you.
I thought so. Nice to see you.
Lipinski does not support abortion and has voted against bills providing federal funds for the procedure, something many Democrats feel is a deal breaker.
Dan Lipinski isn't voting for the bills that the Democratic Party wants passed, and it's important that we not just keep the same people in power that have always been in power. We have to make sure that the party is responsible to their base.
Newman won endorsements from pro-choice 2020 presidential candidate Kirsten Gillibrand and is backed by Planned Parenthood. On the other side, Lipinski says Newman is disconnected from the real issues like jobs, infrastructure, and healthcare, saying, quote, "These endorsements make clear that Marie Newman is again running a, quote, Tea Party of the Left campaign at the behest of national interest groups, rather than focusing on taking care of the everyday concerns of people in the district, as I have a track record of doing." But a New York Times article recently questioned whether there is room in the Democratic Party at all for lawmakers who oppose abortion. Just last week, the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee pulled out of a fundraiser for Lipinski, a sign the party might be headed in a different direction.
There is definitely a new branch in Democrats who are more progressive-minded. They got the grassroots mentality, and you know, the thing with the grassroots mentality is that you need the people to support you.
In Illinois' 3rd Congressional District, Alexa McHale, Northwestern News Network.
Primary day in Illinois will be March 17th, 2020. After the break, safety in sanctuaries, how some families hope that by staying put, they can stay on U.S. soil.
Plus, doctors without barriers, how one program is making it easier for patients to be treated in their native language, and why experts say it's so important.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
Oh, look, a redhead.
Staring contest.
You still got it. I know. Come alive with the forest. The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
In Humboldt Park, a pastor is protecting an undocumented immigrant from deportation by letting her live in this church. When Francisca Lino moved in nearly 2 years ago, she wrote a letter to ICE telling them where she was. She spends her days reading and helping out around the church. Now, some politicians want to help people like Lino. One resolution, which a group of advocates from a different church in Pilsen helped write, has made its way to the Illinois House of Representatives. By Sunday afternoon, most people leave church, but Francisca Lino stays. For the past 21 months, she's been seeking sanctuary at the Adalberto United Methodist Church in Humboldt Park.
I'm here because I'm resisting deportation. I need to be here because of my children.
Lino moved to the U.S. from Mexico 20 years ago. Her 5 children are American citizens, but she is not. She stays because
I don't want to leave my children because they have psychological problems and I don't want to leave them like that.
Lino's younger kids come with their father to visit her every week. But when her child was in the hospital, she couldn't be there for fear of deportation.
If I go, I don't know when I will see them.
Chicago is a sanctuary city, but in the first half of 2017, nearly 3,000 people were deported, according to ICE data. Sanctuary critics say the policy walks a fine moral line.
It's teaching people that our laws don't mean anything. Our laws shouldn't be respected.
Lino is one of about 50 people seeking sanctuary in churches nationwide. ICE typically avoids arresting people in schools, hospitals, and houses of worship. At a different church across Chicago, a group of parishioners are turning to politicians to help people like Lino get visas.
This is something that many people need to be aware of.
When 12-year-old Mahalia Velasco isn't practicing piano or with her friends, she's pushing legislation in state capital Springfield. For her, it's personal. Her dad was deported when she was 5.
As a U.S. citizen, as a child, I have to go through my mom being mother and father to me.
So she turned agony into action, helping to draft a resolution. House Resolution 241 proposes 3-year renewable visas for parents in mixed families, where one or both parents may be undocumented, but the children are American citizens. The resolution passed in Chicago City Council and the Cook County Board of Commissioners. Now it's at the State House. But sometimes families of mixed status get mixed signals from politicians. Mahalia's mom, a U.S. citizen, has questions.
Again, I'm an American citizen. Why can't I fix the status of my husband?
According to the Migration Policy Institute, more than 5 million children in the U.S. have at least one undocumented parent, like Mahalia and her siblings.
Mother and brother crying right in front of me, and all my siblings are distressed because my father's taken away.
Mahalia hopes the resolution will become law and can reunite her with her dad.
My father was not a criminal.
For Garcia's family, it's not always easy.
It's been hard for all of us.
But she says it's worth the fight.
If we knew that we weren't going to have a chance to win, then why even waste our time? But we believe it can.
I spoke with Representative Teresa Ma of Chicago's 2nd District. She says she plans to present the resolution on the House floor sometime this week. She expects it will be adopted. The resolution also aims to help the parents of DACA children gain legal status.
The number of Hispanic police officers in Chicago has increased by more than 6% since 2013, largely due to efforts to recruit more diverse applicants in the aftermath of the Jason Van Dyke shooting. But one organization has been promoting Puerto Rican culture in the force for more than 40 years.
When I first got here, as I said, I was one of a handful of Puerto Rican or Hispanic police officers, and it wasn't easy, you know.
Cruz has been a police officer with the Cicero Police Department for 23 years. He joined the force after noticing as a child how few CPD officers looked like him.
It took time for them to trust. It took time for them to understand where I came from. I fought hard to avoid that situation and moved up the chain of command to be a role model for other Puerto Rican and Hispanic officers.
Cruz was able to become a role model for his community through his involvement with the Puerto Rican Police Association.
This is the only Puerto Rican police association in the country. So we have expanded from being the smallest Hispanic organization in the state to being the largest now.
One of the organization's 200 members said he was attracted to the PRPA because of its connection to the community.
They'll come out, they had fundraisers, they have get-togethers with families. It was so interesting and so good for the community and for the police officers that it was outstanding for me to hear all that information, especially now how law enforcement is getting.
We're a Puerto Rican organization that teaches culture, that we want to make sure our culture still lives, but we want to teach everybody that our organization is a welcoming organization.
This past year alone, the PRPA has hosted events, including community basketball games and holiday fundraisers for special needs students. They also raised funding to purchase a mobile medical unit for those in Puerto Rico affected by Hurricane Maria.
We work with the community as a partner in making it safer and a better place for everyone.
Working with the community like this allows the PRPA to challenge stereotypes about police officers and to gain the public's trust.
Seeing people that look just like them going up the chain of command and being bosses and making decisions makes them proud.
As for the PRPA's plans for the future,
our long-term goal is to become an entity inside all communities that we can come out and help, educate, teach, volunteer, and be that person that kids can trust.
By promoting Puerto Rican culture, the association hopes to bridge long-lasting divides between the community and local police. Tensions between the two groups go all the way back to the 1966 Division Street riots, which occurred after a police officer shot a 12-year-old boy during the first annual Puerto Rican parade. This year, the PRPA will represent a new generation of officers at the very...
Thanks, Kara. Hospital visits are always stressful, but cultural and language barriers can make circumstances even worse. NNN's Megan Leibowitz explains how some doctors in a city as diverse as Chicago are working to prevent any information from getting lost in translation.
For some patients, communicating with medical staff is easier said than done.
When it comes to cancer, a lot is lost in translation.
According to Census Reporter, in 2017, more than a third of Chicagoans said they speak a language other than English at home, and about a fifth of the city's population is foreign-born.
I think just being cognizant and respectful of how diverse the society is will actually definitely strengthen everyone, and I think healthcare is no exception to that.
Northwestern Medicine offers language interpretation services like in-person interpreters. But services like these are not always as accessible as they seem.
There's just so many different pieces to coordinate to try to get somebody there in person, and it's just a lot of resources for a hospital to extend.
Medical staff can also call interpreters over the phone, but
you miss all sorts of facial expressions, and sometimes the quality is not great, and especially a lot of our patients in the hospital have a hard time hearing.
Video translation services are a potential solution. Hospital iPads have an app that connects medical staff with interpreters. When Carol used the app for the first time, her interpreter translated jokes and explained the cultural differences that may exist between her and her patients.
I was like, oh, I need to test this and make sure it works. It was the easiest thing I've ever done.
While technology and interpreters are helping bridge the divide between non-English speaking patients and their doctors, some medical programs are cutting out the middleman.
Translators do an amazing job. They're great, but sometimes you need a personal touch, a connection.
Northwestern Medicine Dr. Adam Sonnabend launched the Hispanic Brain and Spine Tumor Program this year. And although about 1/3 of Chicagoans speak Spanish at home,
we almost never see a Hispanic patient.
Sonnabend and his medical staff speak Spanish fluently and communicate directly with Spanish-speaking patients.
Translators are outstanding, are very important, but there's nothing that parallels just a care provider talking to their patient in their own language.
Sonnabend hopes to see other medical professionals give patients the option to be paired with doctors who speak their first language.
We have in our faculty people who speak Farsi, French, German, Polish. There's a lot of amazing resources already available, but nobody taps into them because we just haven't organized ourselves enough.
Doctors' actions speaking louder than words, so patients can use their own. In River North, Megan Leibowitz, Northwestern News Network.
It's standard practice across the nation for discharge papers to be printed in English, even for non-English speakers. The information is just interpreted verbally in a patient's native language.
Coming up, out and on the street, how one organization is fighting to help Chicago's most vulnerable.
If you want to be a parent, it doesn't matter how you play, what you wear, how you dance, or even what direction life takes you. You just need to be there. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care don't need perfection. They just need you.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank.
1 in 10 adults aged 18 to 25 in the U.S. experiences homelessness each year. That's about 3.5 million people. But there's one group who experience homelessness at an even higher rate, especially here in Chicago.
Maeve is playing chess with her friend Daniel today. A few months ago, she was a full-time student at Columbia College Chicago studying film, but that didn't work out.
I had been really excited about making new friends and being in a happy friendship relationship with my roommates, and that just kind of fell through the floor.
After dropping out, Maeve went home, suffering from severe depression, and that's when her parents kicked her out.
And so I packed my bags and I chose to leave. They saw me as so much of a burden that they were just going to throw me away.
A study from the University of Chicago says LGBTQ+ youth are twice as likely to experience homelessness as their peers. Maeve now stays at the Crib, one of the nation's first homeless shelters dedicated to LGBTQ+ youth.
It's a free place to stay. I'm not in a place to argue.
The Crib and Youth Center on Hallstad provide Maeve breakfast and dinner. She doesn't usually get lunch. The staff also host weekly programs on gender and identity and hosted a queer prom this month.
The biggest lesson that I've learned being here is that there's still people.
Experts say it's not just money or behavior that leaves so many LGBTQ+ youth homeless.
They get put out for being who they are.
Marco Lucio Chavez works with the youth outreach team for the Crib that Maeve stays at.
They get put out because they just choose to love somebody that society says they shouldn't. And I think that is one of single-handedly the most heartbreaking things.
For Maeve, it's still an uphill battle, sometimes fighting bigotry at the shelter.
I don't want to sleep next to them, and I don't want to have to speak to them or see them. I don't want them to hit on me.
Maeve hopes to someday be in her own home. Right now, she's applying for jobs, trying to take herself in a different direction from where she started at Columbia, but still express herself through art.
Try to make sure when I'm writing, it's for me, not for somebody else. And if someone else enjoys it, that's good.
In Boys Town, Alexa McHale, Northwestern News Network.
The Crib is opening another shelter in Bucktown with construction expected to be complete in November. They said they hope to continue to expand even further.
And after the break, Bottoms Up, a boozy tradition makes its way back to the Windy City. We'll show you what makes Malort distinctly Chicago.
Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year, 1 in 195 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 68. I'm Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
85 years ago, Carl Jepsen founded Jepsen's Malort right here in Chicago.
Cost-force manufacturing out of the city, but now, as you can see, production has moved back home with the help of CH Distillery. Here's an inside look at how Malort becomes the spirit of Chicago.
Cheers.
It's the only drink that has a face.
Most people react pretty strongly to the very bitter flavor and make a face, and that's called the Malort face.
And the only drink that also means hello.
over the years, it's ingrained itself in the Chicago bar scene as the kind of the alcoholic greeting to Chicago.
Once used to treat parasites, Chicago's liquor is made with sugar, yeast, and wormwood, which gives Malort its distinct taste.
We get our Wormwood 4 Jepson's Malort from a secret location in Northern Europe.
All of those ingredients come together right here in Pilsen to make Chicago's very own Malort.
Right now, this tank has got enough Malort for about 300,000 shots.
It starts off as beer.
And then we'll send it over to these big tanks over here.
Then it turns into vodka.
These big towers over here do the distillation.
Once the wormwood is added,
from there, it gets a little fuzzy because I can't tell you all the details.
It becomes Malort. Off to bottles or something special. And here's what they're working on right now. These barrels have bourbon and rum. They're taking the spirits out of these barrels and putting the Malort inside.
This is actually a rum barrel from rum that we made a couple of years ago. There it is in all its glory. Yeah, it's got a little bit of that kind of molasses rum sort of sweetness.
But still, undeniably, Malort.
You can't fake Malort, and you can't come up with a slick marketing campaign for Malort. It lives really in the souls of Chicagoans.
In Pilsen, Caitlin Boudreau.
Oh, that was such a great face you just made.
Northwestern News Network.
And don't worry, Caitlin is 21.
And before we go tonight, we want to end the show on a fun note. Joining us now is NNN executive producer and Chicago native Meredith Sonnefeld. And Meredith, this is your last Chicago show.
I know, I'm so sad. This is my favorite NNN tradition, so I'm so sad to be leaving, and I'll miss you all so much.
We're going to miss you.
Well, usually the fact that I'm from Chicago is one of the first things that people know about me. I'm kind of obnoxious. So today I'm going to test you in some of my favorite Chicago facts. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I only have one person to compete against.
You're a little more competitive than I am, but I'm excited.
You play to win the game, Joey.
All right, first up. The Chicago flag has been called one of the most recognizable flags in the country. It flies all over the city and has even become a popular tattoo. My sister has it tattooed on her back.
And you were going to get one.
I was. We'll see. I haven't decided yet. But some say it's so popular because of the symbolism, and each of the stars represents an important event in Chicago's history. So which of the following is not one of those events? The World's Fair Columbian Exposition of 1893, the 1983 mayoral election of Harold Washington, Chicago's first black mayor, the Great Chicago Fire in 1871, and Fort Dearborn, a military fort built on the Chicago River in 1803. What do you think?
Now, I'm going to go with the 20th century mayoral election because that seems a little recent, that they'd have to change the flag. Don't really think that's what they would do.
Very logical approach. I'm also going to go with the mayoral election, but I just think other mayors would get jealous and they'd have to keep adding stars to the flag.
Interesting. You're both correct. That is not one of the stars. Now, former Mayor Rahm Emanuel actually recommended that we add a 5th star to represent Chicago's bid for the 2016 Olympics. Obviously, that didn't happen, but others have suggested ones for the Chicago Cubs World Series win.
The White Sox won in 2005.
I know, and also one for Obama's presidential election. So we'll see if the new mayor makes that happen. We'll see. All right, next up. So this Puerto Rican flag sculpture flies above Division Street in what Chicago neighborhood? Is it Humboldt Park, Logan Square, Pilsen, or Bridgeport?
I've got this one. It's Humboldt Park. I did my package in Humboldt Park.
That's right.
So
I forgot that you had just been there. So you probably, did you see it?
I did see it. It was
cool,
my first time
isn't
seeing it in person.
It's huge.
Ginormous.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to see.
I'm also going to go with Humboldt
Park.
Right.
Surprise. Joey got it right.
I got it right too, Meredith.
Okay, sure.
So we tie.
We tie. We're still X'd out.
We'll have to actually leave it right there. Thank you so much for joining us, Meredith.
Of course.
Thank you for watching The Chicago Show. I'm Joey Safchick.
And I'm Justin Sweetwood. For all of us here at NNN, good night, and thanks for watching.